Yeah, welcome to our first workshop. You can probably just like, well, you guys all know us already, so let's jump right into it, I guess. Like, sorry. Okay, cool. So outline, we're mostly going to cover three topics. First is the origin of blockchain. Where does it come from? What is the concept itself? And then we'll talk about sort of the two very famous examples. One is Bitcoin and one is Ethereum. Yeah. Depends on time. We might not be able to like fully talk about Ethereum because there's just like a lot of content that we want you guys to like kind of get a hang of in Bitcoin if you haven't already like are familiar with Bitcoin. So we'll see how it goes. So here's Paul. The other one. Yeah. Push it. Okay, disclaimer, our workshop series, as you guys might remember, is not really like a lecture system in which you learn everything from us, but it's really just like a starting point for you guys to kind of get a hang of, what to look for yourself on the internet. Because we don't have time all day, you don't have time all day to like learn things like this. So we're basically going to be discussing ideas, not in too much depth, but just like these are, if you find any interesting ideas, you can like note them down and do some more research in your own time. We're also going to be referring to some of the other resources that we found helpful to you guys later on, so you can look through it after this workshop. And also, yeah, feel free to interrupt us anytime if you have any questions. We're always like, we can slow down and explain things if you want. Yeah, even though we say we're not very deep, but it's also still going to be deeper than like other resources out there. So there you go. You're in the right place. So I'll also be interrupted. We have a everywhere. Yes, it's interactive. Here, so please tell us, what is blockchain? Yeah, what is blockchain? And then I'm also going to text. Scam? Nah, well, insane. Like making a blockchain. Chain with blocks. Whoa. You guys are useless. I thought linked list. Linked list. No, it's not wrong. Yeah. It's a list that is linked. Very, very accurate. That's right. And does it involve blocks? Yes, indeed, it involves blocks. What are blocks? Yeah. Link the chain. Minecraft. Wow, blocks. Block world. I think that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. So yeah, some great ideas being thrown around here. Indeed, blockchain is made of block and chain. But yeah, we'll be going like, okay, so now we're going to talk about what really is blockchain.
Okay, let's start off. Blockchain is not equal to Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency, which means blockchain and cryptocurrency are different concepts. So the best way, like, I want to explain what blockchain is right now because we'll be explaining it like throughout the presentation. But the best way to understand this is like through the operating system analogy. Imagine like your blockchain is like your Bitcoin is an application for your operating system. Imagine like your blockchain, like the concept of blockchain is the operating system, like Microsoft, and like blockchain is like an application on that operating system, like a PowerPoint, like MS PowerPoint, or like an Ethereum can be like Excel or something. And so you have like all these different cryptocurrencies operating on this blockchain, on like their separate blockchains, but they all have the same fundamental like platform. In a sense,
and it's not the same platform. There's fundamental technology.
Yeah, it's like the same fundamental technology. It's like, in a sense, it's like GitHub being pulled, like, and people making their own versions of it. In a sense, kind of.
Yeah, that's what's making it work.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be a dumbed down version one, but yeah. So basically, blockchain provides the mean for recording Bitcoin transactions, and we leave it at that. But like we'll go into like more depth later.
Yeah. So blockchain is a concept. Or is it a thing?
It's a network.
It's a network.
Yeah,
so it's a physical network.
What is physics? Yeah.
Oh my god.
What is magnetism? Right. It's like it's a concept. You can implement it, but it's sort of like a class of technology.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys heard of the story of the Otis running blockchain, but it turned out that the Otis running blockchain is actually run by New York Times. And basically what they're doing is that they were using blockchain technology, which is and to actually store their newsletter.
No, actually, that's incorrect, sir.
So it's referring to Cypherpunks. So what the oldest running blockchain is published on New York Times, but it's actually operated by another company called Shorty. And what they do is that they provide document timestamp service. So think about a typical use case, right? Someone sort of wrote a paper, wrote a mail, or did something, and then they hold that day's newspaper and take a picture of it to show other people, like, I did this first, right? It's like, if you come after this day, like, I was able to prove myself with that day's newspaper. So this is sort of a concept of time stamping. But this longest running blockchain is actually, it looks like this on New York Times. It's just a tiny section in lots of font. And then you can see these codes, hash codes, and Vikram will explain how that works. So the purpose is to provide a timestamping service for documents. So how it works is that so you as a author of some kind, you want to say that I created this document on September 21st, 2022. You send your document to this company, and they add it to a database, and they do some blockchain magic, which they public the string here. So that is the use case of this first blockchain, and Vikram can explain more how this first blockchain works.
Let's go with hashing. Okay, sure, you jump up to hashing because like next slide. Perfect. So hashing. The hash is not your hashtag inspiration, firstly. Like, this is not the Instagram hashtag, because this is what I thought when I first started learning about hashing, because I don't know why, but like, this is what came to my mind first. But it's not your Instagram hashtags. So a hash is basically a function which takes in a string. Let's say we'll take in my name because I'm, and I hash it, and it gives me a string of a fixed length, like let's say ABC. It does something to it, does some math shit to it, and it gives me ABC. Irrespective of what I put into it, it will always give me a fixed length string. So like they put in Vikram and they got that. Let's put in Vikram and Brandon now. So you see, it's a completely different thing, and but the length is still the same. Now let's put in Intel also. Still the same size, but completely a different thing. So what the purpose of this is basically, as we had like in the newspaper example, we want to maintain integrity and we want to maintain security always. This is the basic premise of blockchain, and this is what we want to continue like throughout the entire blockchain thing. So let's say we have have a bunch of documents, and let's say these documents of way more people. Wait, okay, never mind.
Welcome, take a seat. Anyways,
Okay, continue. So let's say there's a document I signed on 9th of September 2022, and this contains document A. So as we can see, there's a lot of data in there, right? But I mean, I can't always going back to this data because there's going to be a huge amount of data. But I'm going to continue like going, like when I add more stuff to it, I want to see if this has maintained its integrity. So I'm going to hash it, and this is going to give me a hashed out string. Let's say, look at this. Now this is also going to give me ABC just for the sake of creativity and easiness. And let's say the next day on the 22nd of September, I go ahead and I want to create something that continues on this and builds off it. So I want to add doc B to this. So I add doc B to this, and this is going to happen on the 22nd of September, so tomorrow. And instead of using the entire doc, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use this hash here. So it's gonna take the hash of the previous the previous block and hash this entire thing together and give me a new hash, which is, let's say, DEF. So you see like how extra data was added to it, but we still have something that's only 3 characters. Let's say on the 23rd, I go ahead and I add doc.c to it. And what I'll do is I'll take DEF again, and then I'll hash all of these together also. This gives me, what's the plus with F? Yeah.
Okay, shy. Here we go.
Nice, I'm smart now. Anyways, so that's GHI. But let's say I'm kind of a creep and I change doc.c, like I go back in history and take doc.c and change it to doc.g. I manipulate the history of this thing. So, but we know hash only gives a unique output for like whatever this is. So if once I change this is gonna give me an entirely new different hash. Like this is now gonna give me like, I don't know, XYZ or something. This XYZ is not gonna match with this. So now this will be hashed as this thing plus XYZ. So this is instead gonna give me I don't know, PQR. When I hash this again, because this is not going to be DEF any longer, this is going to be PQR. This just represents a changed, like, it represents a changed history now. So when I hash this is going to give me TUV. TUV is not equal to GHI, which means someone messed something up in here, which is basically the premise of hashing. Did that kind of explain stuff?
Yeah, I think so. So,
Good question.
Do you run out of hashes?
you don't,
No.
basically, we assume that we don't.
Because it works on a recursive function, right?
Yeah, so if you take the example of SHA-256, it outputs a 256-bit binary, which is shown as hexadecimal there. Are you familiar with how binary works?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's 2 to the power 256, like numbers of different ways to represent things. Of course, there are collisions in which that 2 different things hashes to the same like hash, has the same output. But SHA-256 is like designed deliberately to avoid that, so we don't have to worry about that. So if you really want to think about it, that's no.
And just to summarize the intuition where we went through, like through all of this, the problem we're trying to solve is we want to timestamp documents on a specific date. So, you know, given September 21st, we have a certain amount document that we want timestamp on that day. And then on the 22nd, we have some documents we want to timestamp on that day. And then we essentially use a hash to generate a unique signature of this content, including this these documents and the date, such that if we record the unique signature of this this block of content on 21st, then we just need to record this hash, this number somewhere. And as long as this, if we try to go back to look into this bucket and then do the computation, do the hash, that the hash is it agrees with our previous recorded hash, then we know nothing in here has changed. And does anyone have a question about that? Yes. So similarly, we can do this for every date. But then the problem is that you need to keep track of this a number for each day, right? Which is cumbersome. So now we think about, is it possible to just keep track of one number, and then we can make sure that everything happened before it is consistent, is not manipulated. So to do that, we're essentially take this and add it to the content of the next day's next block, such that this actually makes up a tiny bit of this hash, and this makes up a tiny bit of this hash. And because they all have a little bit of previous hashes, so if you go all the way back to this final hash, as long as this final hash matches, you know, when it's first created and it matches later when you go check, it's the same, then you are guaranteed that everything happened before it is the same. And one analogy to explaining hash and hash chain in general, you can think of a bucket of water. So we have this bucket of water which is pure. And then you try to add, let's say, 3 color pigment into it. You have blue, pink, and orange. And once you add stuff into it, and then you can just take, 1 spoonful of the water, and this water is going to contain some blue, some pink, some orange. And let's store this bucket away for a month. Let's put it in the garage for a month. And then a month later, we try to resample this water. If the water still is the same sort of component, it's still sort of a mixture of blue, pink, orange, then we know this water is not manipulated, right? Like no one try to drink this water or something, I don't know. But if we sample this water again and realize it's a different color, now we know that someone messed with this water because this water is not the original water.
Maybe someone took a piss.
Exactly. Now you think about it recursively, right? Like what if we take some of this water and put it into a new bucket? And so you have this BPO water, and then you add like green and brown. And if you sample this water, what you're gonna get out is a little bit of BPO, and then you're gonna get green and brown. And because this is actually, it's not like sequentially take water into this is all like digitally interconnected. So once you change something inside of this part changes. So you just need to make sure the very last one is the same. And then you make sure that all the infinitesimally small sort of components from the previous bucket is consistent and they're all there. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
Usually when people don't ask questions, that means they don't understand.
Yeah. So how about we have someone who just like basically summarizes how this works? Let's go with you, Kyle.
Okay. So, okay,
How do you timestamp documents?
so we keep day 1, then take a sheet of it, boom, put it on day 2. Boom, put
What
it
are
on
we
day
taking
3.
from the sheet?
What?
What are we taking from the sheet?
It's like the code, the hash.
What does the hash represent?
It's just like what, a third, 256 binary number.
So if you really think about it, the hash is like a summary of the contents in the page, right? If you take that hash, you pretty much summarize like whatever is in that page. Although you don't really know what's in the page from the hash because of one-way function, as in you can't really get what's the input from the output of the hash. But you know that if I feed it in the same document, the same like newsletter, I will output and have the same hash. This way I can verify that the content is still the same. And then what do you do with the hash?
Put in the next day's hash.
You put it with the next day's contents because
contents.
now the hash becomes part of the content. Therefore, today's hash is relying on yesterday's hash, and yesterday's hash was relying on the day before. Therefore, you have a hash chain. And if you have a block of hashes with data on it, you have a block chain. It's you now have better understanding of blockchain than like 99% of the population. Congratulations.
Honestly, yes.
Oh, explain what?
I'm gonna go through like where everything lives, like what's that later?
Oh, like where everything lives?
Yeah.
So in the example of this New York Times or Shorty, they host the service on New York Times. Actually, they have their own computer system. What they do is they occasionally take this hash, let's say, on 22nd, and then they publish this hash onto New York Times so that people can go back and check, right? People can take the document here and hash them together and see if the things in their database matches the things published on New York Times, right? So essentially they're periodically providing this point of reference as in the example of this bucket. Essentially they're periodically taking out the water sample and checking if everything stays correct. Yeah. So essentially, this is the fundamental technology that powers or concept that powers blockchain. But additionally, there's a bunch of other related technologies that we wouldn't mention, but we want to show them here. There's public-private key cryptography, hashing, as we mentioned here. There's digital signatures. RSA is one of the encryption algorithm. Proof of work, which is something we're going to cover in a bit. But just want to sort of float these concepts in front of you. You don't really need to understand them up now. Once we talked about the technology that drives blockchain, here's because technology doesn't directly go to application. It's like you have the ability to do something, and then you want to do something. Then it comes to application. So that is why we want to cover the origin of the philosophy when it relates to blockchain. So any thoughts? Do you guys know what these stands for? Any what the picture on the left, what picture on the right? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Oh wait, go ahead.
Is the right they a hacking group?
It's
They're
a hacking group.
anonymous?
It's not anonymous. They are anonymous, but they're not the anonymous. All right, so I shall explain. So on the left side, we got some fancy animations. So it's a group called a crypto anarchist. This is their manifesto published in 1988. Computer technology providing for individuals and groups to communicate in a totally anonymous manner, exchange messages, conduct business, and negotiate electronic contracts without ever knowing the true name or legal identity of the other, untraceable by extensive rerouting of encrypted packets. You can see, whatever you feel about Bitcoin, you probably, see a little bit of that in here. And on the right, we have Cypherpunks. Yes, privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. We cannot expect governments, corporations, or other large faceless organizations to grant us privacy. We must defend our own privacy if we expect to have any cypherpunks write code. We know that someone has to write software to defend privacy, and we're going to write it. And Eric Hughes is one of the person on the cover. And on the left side, so crypto anarchists, it was mostly cryptographers, and cypherpunks sort of a little bit closer to the applications, they're mostly cryptographers and programmers, computer scientists. So what's the background of this? So there are some key beliefs that summarize privacy of communication, anonymity, pseudonymity, privacy and self-revelation, revelation, censorship and monitoring, digitization of trade, redefining property rights. What's the historical backdrop of this? What happens is that throughout the world wars, throughout the Vietnam Wars, cryptography rose to prominence because sort of different code, the imitation game Enigma machine. Like I'm not sure if you guys watched, but it was really important for military purposes. Does anyone have a question like why it's important for military purposes? Good. Or maybe you just don't care to answer. But it's essentially it's like if I want to send, communicate with my frontline troops, right? How can I send it to them such that my enemy, even if they intercepted the message, they wouldn't be able to know like where I'm going to send the troop because the military, it's really important to not let your enemy know where you're sending your troops. I hope that is obvious. So with that backdrop, cryptography actually become increasingly like secretive, and all the cryptologists in the U.S. and abroad, they're asked by the government to not discuss their research, not even at a small group session in like conferences, and encryption technology became classified as a weapon. So on this shirt, you see that this shirt is classified as ammunition, something may not be exported from the United States or shown to foreign national. RSA is an encryption program that we just alluded to. So that below is 4 lines of code that makes up the encryption algorithm, and below is the binary, or like the barcode version of it. And in fact, there was a website set up by one of the cypherpunks who are against government regulation on encryption. What he did is set up a website, and there's a button that says, by clicking this button, you become an international arms dealer. What the website does, in fact, is sending an email from containing the RSA code from a US email server to a foreign email server. But because of that code is technically classified as a weapon, you become an international arms dealer. So this is sort of what people who believe in this movement believe to be ridiculous. And they're actively protecting their rights through cryptography, through wearing shirts like this, through distributing this technology to the world, because they believe that in some years, this is going to be sort of what the world runs on. This technology is going to change the world as is, and it's going to change the power structure. It's going to redefine property rights, right? And I think it's really cool to see them have that revelation back in the 80s, 90s, because today we're being concerned about privacy of communications. And today we're thinking about, how do we not reveal our identity to everyone online? Today we're thinking about, controlling who can access our information, which is the third clause. Today we're thinking about censorship. Obviously, government has sort of really gotten good in the technology and getting crazy. And we have NFTs, digitalization of trade. We have real estate becoming NFTs and getting sold. And again, we have digital property rights. So a lot of what they're trying to do is being realized today. And there we are, we have the technology, blockchain, and the other encryption tech. And then we have the philosophy, sort of, protecting encryption, being able to be anonymous, encryption, cryptology, everything. So in 1989, we have DigiCash, which is sort of electronic anonymous money transfer through banks. It didn't really take off. In 1996, we have eGold. It's a digital currency backed by gold. So it's like Bitcoin, but backed by gold, sort of. Obviously, it's missing some parts. In 97, we have Hashcash. It's so have you guys who has gotten like spam emails? Your hand. All right, cool. I would say most people got spam email. And how spam emails works is that someone who wants to spam you, they just send emails to thousands of email accounts and basically at no cost, right? So what Hashcash does is essentially ask for anyone to send you an email to put in some work, and the work is computational hashing work. So do many hashes that takes a lot of time. And if someone's willing to dedicate 10 minutes of their computer like running time to like generate a certificate of work, then they're probably not spamming you. Because if they're spamming, they're doing it at mass scale. They're not going to spend 10 minutes per 1,000 emails. That's just going to be a waste of resources. So that is sort of the first concept of proof of work. What it is, we'll talk about in later slides. And then 98, we have B-Money. It introduced concept of proof of work plus digital currency, plus it's decentralized, but it was never implemented. It was just an idea. And very soon after, BitGold, whose founder is actually an employee of DigiCash, introduced proof of work, digital currency, decentralized, plus the Bitcoin, the blockchain chaining concept. And that is sort of the closest predecessor of Bitcoin. Obviously, after 98 to 2008, there are like other sort of very close like cousins of Bitcoin, but BitGold is the first sort of that has like 99% of all the features. And we have Bitcoin in 2008. That's exciting. All right, so we have another poll. We turn on the poll. Minecraft actually very interesting, right? Because in Minecraft, people are introducing the concept of digital currency, and it's like a very vibrant ecosystem there. What is it? Roblox? Roblox. I mean, Roblox too. Roblox. Is scanning thing. Roblox. I think we have enough answers. Okay, Bitcoin, and we have our poll. So all of us have a really good understanding of Bitcoin. We can just skip it, right? I'm joking. So from the historical context, we know that the two major driving forces of Bitcoin is first the crypto anarchism and cypherpunk back in the 80s, 90s. And then the other sort of more recent trigger is the 2008 financial crisis, or at least that is easy to attribute Bitcoin's formation to 2008 because it was initially introduced in 2008. Obviously, people were having trouble with the in 2008. People were like, wow, big banks screwed up, and then everything that they've been doing is wrong. So from Bitcoin, we can see that there's a transition from a centralized to decentralized sort of money or government banking structure, from permission, where you need to get banks' permission to open an account and do business with them, to permissionless, like anyone is supposed to be able to open the Bitcoin wallet, from opaque, where bankers can do whatever, like Wells Fargo scamming you, creating fake accounts, to transparent, everything is on the chain, everything is observed by anyone, to manipulatable, right? They can just do whatever, and to consensus, where everything done needs to be agreed by everyone according to a set of rules. Money is also going from inflationary to cap supply. Inflationary means that based on monetary policy, they can just keep printing money, and if you keep $100 in your pocket, it's just gonna get devalued over time, and this, for the foreseeable future, it's gonna keep doing that. Like there's no stop at this point. With cap supply, technically Bitcoin has a like an asymptote, or so there's a total supply. We're not quite there yet, but it never reaches above a certain amount of Bitcoin. So in that sense, Bitcoin will never devalue over time. Obviously, there are other reasons that why the value can go down, but we can talk about that.
But yeah, what is money anyways? Well, when you pull out, let's say $5 on a food truck and buy yourself a nice lunch, have you ever thought to yourself, like, what is this $5? Like, what does it represent? So back in the older days when people are trading goods for goods, it's like, if I'm a chicken raiser, I breed chickens and I sell chickens. Wow, you cut wood, you're a carpenter. I can trade, let's say, 3 chickens for a nice table. So that's how people were keeping the tally of goods and services back then. But obviously this system doesn't really work. How can I divide a chicken in half if you want it alive? So therefore there comes like the notion of the representation of value, which is money. Because like now I can give like an actual label to any goods and services and see how much that is. Let's say I can sell this chicken for $5, and this $5, which equates to one of my chicken, but also equates to, like, let's say 2 of your tables. Therefore, the creation of the system of money allows the freedom of exchange of goods and services between like whatever you want, whether that's like a real good or like any digital services. Well, that's how it works in our modern society as well. Before the introduction of paper money, like rare earth metals were used, like gold and other diamonds. For those who play Minecraft, you know how hard it is to mine like emeralds. That's what, yeah, obviously we're not going to talk about how easy it is to farm emeralds with villagers, but that is the idea behind why emeralds is the chosen currency between villagers. It's very hard for you to just magically create more unless you use some really inhumane trading with your villagers. But yeah, that's the idea. That's why like gold was used as a rare earth metal to represent money, because like it's really hard for me to just magically create more gold. Therefore, gold does not really appreciate that much over time, as Intel talked about with the US trading system. However, moving on to modern age, we have the post-war Bretton Woods system. Is anyone familiar with this with the Bretton Woods system? Okay. Does anyone know? Oh, we have one hand.
Like I think I learned it like in US history.
Yes.
I think it's somehow like you connect the money with like oil or like another like stable like
Gold.
yeah.
Gold, yes. So after World War II, all the European countries as well as Asian countries, they're like all bankrupt because like war costs a lot of money. And US, while being the #1 winner of the World War II, made a lot of money, so they're super rich. They're like, hey, I can help you repair your economy if you just give me your money. Which is what they did. They basically gathered 44 countries together and they made the Bretton Woods system. What the system is it pegs the US dollar to gold. I think so basically if you have one single US dollar, there's like some fixed ratio of how much gold it can represent. And well, I mean, like gold is just a system that's been etched into people's mind of, oh, if gold like is valuable. Therefore, the U.S. government has basically forced all the other countries to agree that U.S. dollar is valuable, despite you can easily print and create more U.S. dollars. Because if the central bank of America just decide to print more dollars, then they're not really creating more gold, but they just adding inflation, as Intel said. One really interesting idea that we can link back to is the event of Tulip Mania. Is anyone familiar with this historical event? Yes.
Yeah, was it? Oh, for some reason, I forget what initially caused it, but people really wanted tulips in like the 1600s. So they kept buying up more and more tulips and selling it for higher and higher as the market just kept exploding until one day, like there's something faulty with the tulip shipment.
Yep.
And then yeah, it just crashed.
Yeah, so on the right, we have a graph representing the price of tulip that happened from 1636 to 37. So yeah, due to some reason, people were very popular, like tulips were very popular among Dutch people during that year. So everyone wanted to buy it, but like let's say I have a tulip, you have a tulip. I see that you're selling this tulip for like twice the price. So I also increase my price because I know people are wanting to buy that tulip for more and more. This is a very like simplified version of like a hyperinflation economy. And how that relates to money is that if you really think about it, money is just a construct. If I agree that $1 worth $1 to you, and you're willing to exchange $1 worth of goods for my $1, then we are both happy. There's no trade or dispute. If I say like, let's say this chair costs like 0.5 cents, and you agree that this, and you're the chair maker, and you agree that this costs 0.5 cents, it's a happy deal. Like I'm not losing, you're not losing, you're getting whatever you want. So that's what money really is. It's really just a trust system in which that you trust that you agree, I agree, we all agree. Which later we'll be seeing how it links to the very idea of a consensus on a chain. Because same with a blockchain, if you agree that this Bitcoin worth like $16,000, I agree that Bitcoin costs $16,000, then I can trade you one Bitcoin for $16,000. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about how money works? So everything's fake. Yeah, everything is fake. Speaking of which, does any of you watch Netflix? Yeah. Have you seen the show called Money Heist? It's a very popular Spanish show.
I know, I watched like the first 10 minutes.
Okay, but there's a very important quote that says by the professor, who's like the leading criminal in this group, that at the end, at the end of season 1, he basically ripped like a bunch of Spanish paper and Spanish cash to say this is all a construct, which he's very true. Because the storyline of like Money Heist, basically they with a group of terrorists took over like a minting factory for the Spanish, I guess, National Reserve. They start printing money. And then people are really, there are people supporting it, there's people who's against it. Obviously, the government's really against it because their money is being stolen. But what they're really doing is what the Spanish government is doing anyways, just as well as all the other major, let's say, like all the other countries with a huge amount of national reserve. They're able to keep printing money as much as they want. That's why we have inflation. That's why we have all the other nasty things with like financial crisis. But that's just an interesting show. If you guys want to watch it, it's interesting. But like it kind of links back to the idea of like what makes money. Yes.
So question, if hypothetically those guys printed all this money and
Yes.
no one knew about it and just, I don't know, threw it into the ground for a rainy day, would the currency inflate?
So, okay, the amount of true value that's in an economy is set, right? Because like, let's say if country A can output 1,000 cars per year, then you can't, even printing more money wouldn't really allow you to output more cars. So that's fixed. That's the concept we need to remember. But if you have more money, that you're injecting more money into the money system, it just means that all the other money that's originating the system will get fractionalized and worth less. But it depends on like the magnitude you're dumping money in. If it's a lot of money, it will immediately see because all of your friends and your family are now richer. They can afford more things, but that means everyone else is asking for more money. That's what inflation is. You get paid, let's say, like $1,000 a month this year, but like if you get paid $1,000 next year, you're actually losing money because like the U.S. national inflation rate is like higher than that.
You're all losing money right now.
Yeah.
I'm also losing money right now.
So that's why everyone says don't put your money in the bank.
And the interest rate went up by 75 basis point again today, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's what led people into creating digital money. They're like, hey, if we can all agree that this Bitcoin worth this much, then we can ensure that we're not getting scammed by the U.S. government. the 2008 financial crisis is not going to happen on on the blockchain because like supposedly there's no evil investors from Wall Street that's screwing around with the system. But obviously there are, which we will start with. Yeah.
Cool. All right, it's my turn again. So let's forget about cash, right? Now think about digital money. We actually know about this very well, right? It's like, think about your Venmos, your credit cards, right? Like, I don't actually use cash nowadays. So really what money to me is that just someone somewhere keeps track of like how much money I have. And as long as I can spend it, that's all I care about. So introducing this accounting book with 3 people on earth, Adam, Baker, and Clark, at $10, $20, and $5 respectively. So, okay, so we have the first condition satisfied. We have, I know how much money I have. And as long as this block doesn't change, like I will always have that money, right? That's just, that's Venmo. And now the Venmo's second feature. What?
The block is that, what's a block? You just said a block, what's a block?
Oh, no, oh, sorry. This is like literally the square. This is like accounting book, right? It's like that block-ish accounting book.
Think about it as a literal book with text written on it.
Right.
Your yeah.
It's like Venmo's like Venmo, right? It's
Yeah.
like how much money everyone's account have.
You have a transaction log, right? If I pay you $10, you give
No,
it.
wait, we're not there yet.
Wait,
So 2 parts. First is how much money you have, and second, you need to be able to spend that money. So now Adam pays Baker $5. So and then what happens is that you went from the previous sort of situation at like time 0, Adam has $10, and at time 1, Adam now has $5 because $5 has been paid. And there, guys, this is digital money, right? This is all you need. It's as long as you can store the value, act securely, accurately, and then you can pay other people. And that's all you need. And now let's extrapolate this idea, right? Let's go crazy. And so you have a time is a horizontal axis. So there are not multiple like accounting books. It's just that, at different times we're like taking a screenshot of that instance, what's on the book. And then you just keep going, like every arrow is a transaction. Like you send me money, me send the money, people are sending money all around. And guess what this is? This is what our traditional banking system does, right? So banking system, your money in the account, it's like, now you spend $5 via Visa and this money gets sent to whoever the vendor is. This is our banking system. This is what they do. They just keep track of everyone's balance. And now, if we want to escape the banking system, what do? What if right now we're just saying, okay, so here's my money, here you go, just like make it a number, make sure this number works, right? But what if they screw up? And as we know, they could screw up. And this is sort of goes back all the way back to the Cypherpunks, crypto anarchists, to 2008 financial crisis. And now let's try to brainstorm about how we create digital money. And that's decentralized and consensus in the sense that everyone agrees on how this is done. So first of all, rather than this one copy that's controlled by the government or bank, let's make sure that everyone has a copy of this book. Let's just imagine there's more people. And if everyone had this copy of this book, and at this instant, this book is correct, we're good, right? Like everyone understands how much money they have, how much money other people have. What do we need to do next, right? Okay, the illustration there. I guess I didn't have to draw this. And then the next thing you need to do is the arrows, right? You need to make sure that all the payments, all the transfers, the money flows are valid. AKA, if I say I send money to Brandon, I need to have enough money in my account. That's the first thing that whoever operates keeps track of these accounting books needs to verify I have enough money. And the second is that anyone should be able to look at a certain transaction and say Intel actually authorized this transaction. Similar to how if you pay with your credit card, you need to have a signature so the bank knows it's you swiping the credit card. So how do we do that? Right. Sorry, I forgot what I was gonna, what I was gonna say. What was I gonna say?
How do we implement the clearing system on blockchain in a consensus way?
Okay,
So as Intel said, we have a distributed system of like transaction logs. So instead of like the evil central bank controlling all of your details in a very opaque system, we have a very transparent system. You see how much money I have, I see how much money you have. Although that's kind of bad because like maybe we don't want other people to know how much money you have. But this allows us to see that I sent you a transaction and everyone else on the network can agree because they saw that I sent you a transaction with my signature on it. Like, because with my signature on it, it's you cannot refute that I did not send that transaction. Because the only way for me to, I guess, authorize this transaction is for me to create that signature. If someone has access to my signature, that means I have indeed signed it. Therefore, I authorize me transferring $10 to Intel from my account. And obviously, as Intel said, there are some limitations as to when and where you can suspend your money, right? If you have a net balance of 0, no one should allow you to spend send $10 from a 0 account because you don't have that money. So get out of here. But what you can do is, since everyone have access to the entire transaction log, we know exactly how much you have and we know whether or not a transaction is legal. That's how everyone keeps track of the validity of transaction.
and let's take the example of, okay, so now we have a starting point, everyone, says A has 10, B has 2, or whatever. And then a transaction happens, right? Like I somehow decided to transfer money to someone else. And then, so let's mark this arrow as a transaction. That's A transferred to B, $2. And then, so supposedly, we have sort of, again, horizontally, we have this time axis. And then we have a new sort of everyone updates their own accounting book according to the new transaction, right? Like, A's account -2, B's account +2. However, what if people don't do that? What if people are just like, I want to add more money on my account, or like, I'm just gonna do the math wrong, or even, more stupid is just like, I just did the math wrong, right? Let's say this person just screwed up the math, did the math wrong, and let's assume that we just have not that many people screwing up the math. We can just adopt a simple rule where we follow a simple majority. So at any given point in sort of this network of 3 people, they realize one person is wrong, and then we can just if I have a 4th person observing this activity, and I want to decide, okay, what am I going to change my account book to? Then I'm just going to say, if there are 2 people, or if there's more than 50% of people going with this outcome, like this balance result, I'm just going to go with this group because I think there's more people doing it right than the people who are doing it wrong. So I'm just going to ignore that and I'm going to go with the correct one. All right, so the outcome is that if you want to make someone else believe that this wrong transaction or mistaken transaction is actually what should be adopted by everyone, then you need to have more than 50%. Or you need to control, like you need to ask more than 50% of people in this population to say the same wrong answer as you. So that already we're getting rid of a lot of sort of room for mistake. Does that make sense so far? Well,
When you do this check, do you check everyone or is it a sample of like everybody?
so you check everyone, kind of.
Everybody.
Every transaction record.
Let's just not consider the
Too much
the
detail.
O n square,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no runtime. So, but as you can see right here, right? Let's say A does have $20 and A wants to send that $20 to person B. So this transaction is legal. But what if A also signs the same transaction and sends it to person C? So in person B and person C's eyes, because like A's balance is still $20 on the previous round, both transactions are legal. But as you can see, like A is spending $40 that A does not have. This is what we call the double spending problem. And the double spending problem again creates a different record in the entire transaction log. As we discussed previously with the blockchain hashing system, because these 2 things have different data, just like the New York Times, they're going to result in different hashes. This creates 2 different versions of the blockchain that we're currently on. And as Intel discussed, this is gonna be one version that people vote on, this is gonna be another version that people vote on. Whatever gets 50% of the votes is pretty much guaranteed to be the right version. There's not really like an agreement as to which one of this really is.
At any given time, you can only trust one version, like the two of these can't happen at the same time, they have to happen sequentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wouldn't this like be less like efficient if we offer this like blockchain system? For example, like if we just have like a central bank or like a centralized authority, that means like we're more efficient because we don't need to do this like checks for like the simple majority, like if something went wrong.
Yeah, one thing, I think I can answer that. So when you go to Baba tonight after this, because you need a,
How's it gonna do that?
what?
How's really gonna do that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, when you go to Baba, you pay like $5 for their shitty shake, which they take like 20 minutes to make. And you buy that shake, you pay at the counter, you give them your $5, like you pay through your credit card. Does it show up on your credit card instantly, or is it a pending on it for 3 days? A pending, right? Why is there a pending? Because it's still verifying. It takes them 3 days to verify this, but we can do it within 10 minutes with the blockchain. I think even less with different methods instead of what Bitcoin uses. So that's what you're trying to be, trying to make it faster. For example, instead of like one transaction of $5, what if you made like 2 trillion transactions of $5? How will they verify that? Wouldn't it take them 2 trillion to 3 days to do that? So what we're trying to do with blockchain is trying to make it faster. Like it seems faster because it shows up $5 negative. But what if someone didn't have those $5? Like they'll just show up like 3 days later, but the Bob already lost the money because they're never gonna get that $5.
So there's two considerations here. One is blockchain able to do it faster? In principle, no. In principle, that we have this process, we have to look at other people's opinion on what happens, right? So to reach that consensus, it seems to be a cumbersome extra step that you need to take. But the problem is that in real world, it's not as simple as a bank's database, a computer, they just flip a bit and then decide that the money is being added here. And in fact, there are a lot of intermediaries because, you know, in the past, we have made like financial mistakes, people have hackers. So there's actually, for banks also to ensure the security in this increasing complex system, the financial system we have today, they don't just change the bit. It's not like, you know, from this day to this day. They need to jump through all the hoops and eventually get to here. And one of the example is cross-border transactions, right? So Ripple Labs. So it's like if you, this is a very typical use case, right? Like if I'm from China, like, you know, I obviously would make more salary here in the US. And if I need to support my family in China, I would make my money here and send it back to China, right? And then this is called remittance. So essentially like foreign workers sending back money back to their family. And that is a very complicated process. It takes like 4 or 5 intermediaries. Government needs to be checking on both sides. The exchange rate needs to be set by someone. The money, you know, actually converting one money to the other money is not that trivial. Like that itself needs to go through a few intermediary. So if you're able to, and today with the current implementation of what we're able to achieve on blockchain, that is almost an instant. It takes just a few seconds. So I guess in the real world, blockchain in many places, even though it has the overhead of having to reach consensus, but the performance, because we are getting rid of a lot of bureaucratic stuff, is actually faster.
And adding a note to that, what we're trying to say here is that blockchain or like decentralized services is not a one fixed solution to everything that was centralized. No, this is like, this is very contrary to popular belief, but like decentralized services are actually not very suitable for a lot of the current centralized services. For example, if you take like hospital records, patient records, that's not something you want to really put on a decentralized web because there's just no point. So it's really about application, and with real-time cross-border settlements, as Intel mentioned, is a really good example of like how this can be made so much more efficient. And I mean, as this club, it's just that we are exploring these technology and see where we can apply it to, I guess, make the world a better place. As all like, I don't know, Bay Area people would say, like, yeah. So do we have any questions about how can we prevent, I guess, spending two of the same copies of the money? We haven't moved on to that yet, so everyone should say yes, because we haven't explained it. So let's move on.
So. What?
Proof of work then?
Yeah, so proof of work. So, all right, we're gonna sort of. Throw all this out that we have. We're almost at time, but feel free to stay after.
So,
Do you guys all have to go like right now, or are you guys available to stay after a bit? Like raise your hand if you need to go right now.
It's gonna be like max,
yeah.
Okay,
probably less.
So, okay, I mean, just as a starter, Intel mentioned that for you to, I guess, convince that the majority of everyone else on the blockchain that your purchase or your transaction is correct, you must somehow represent that you have like the majority vote, right? How can we represent majority vote though? That's a really good, yes,
What's majority vote?
is if 51% of the people
Who's
on
voting?
people who are using the money system, aka Bitcoin.
That means everyone with the account called the copy of the account book.
yes, everyone with the copy. So everyone, if you participate in using the system, you have a copy of the account book, and then everyone has an account book. Get to vote on the sort of the 51%. You can decide on the version of truth.
Can I choose not to vote?
You can choose not to vote. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So think about like if everyone does everything properly, then we have a perfect system. No need to do anything. But we can't assume that because people are gonna act maliciously. So what happens if we have one person who has a malicious intent, right? So you can see that's an inverted color from the other side. So this suggests a different color. It's to suggest that they propose a different transaction. And so if it's just one person, it's fine because we use simple majority and overrules that person's malicious submission. But what if we have many of them, right? So in this case, we have this person created copies of himself. And then, so now they have the majority and now they overpower the other side. So now the wrong version of truth, right? The attacked version of truth is taking over. So obviously we cannot let this happen. So what do?
Explain version of truth again.
So essentially, like for example, let's say A transferred $10 to B, right? Let's say B ideally they want to say, oh, A transferred $20 to B, right? So instead of the truth, which is A transferred $10 to B, the other version of truth is A transferred $20 to B. So B want to convince everyone that A in fact transferred $20 to B. So that's sort of two versions of truth, and someone like B would have incentive to attack the network like this. And so instead of having everyone just just can create copies of themselves and vote for their desired version of truth, we introduce this notion of a cryptographic puzzle. So essentially, to support you saying that, okay, I believe A transferred $10 to truth versus A transferred $20 to B. So we have a camp of people who support A to B $10. The other camp is A to B $20. They actually, each camp of people, they need to solve this cryptographic puzzle to prove that, it's like, to prove that you're actually participating. And by which we mean that if you're an attacker and you are trying to make copies of yourself, you are able to create zombies, but not actually real people, because you're not creating real people who's participating in the system. But you can create zombies who doesn't have any brain, so zero brain.
It's like you get more hands, but like you're still as stupid. So
Yeah.
you aren't going to solve the puzzle fast.
Yes. So let's say there's originally 4 people here, and we have 1 plus 4 zombies. It does look like this side was going to originally overpower this side, but now we have this cryptographic puzzle to check if these are real people or are they zombies. So in this case, as we all know, if you solve a puzzle, it's faster to work with more people than by yourself. Although that's an assumption. Let's just assume that if you take 10 minutes to to finish the puzzle, and if you have 2 people, it's half the time. So you can do it, in 5 minutes. So essentially, by having more people here, you're able to solve this puzzle faster versus there's only 1 real person solving it here. Let's say in a 10-minute span, you're able to solve let's say 3 puzzles versus they can only solve 1 puzzles. And then we essentially take a look at how many puzzles you have solved for a given version of truth. If the 3 is greater than 1, then we're gonna go with the one that has solved more puzzle. And this puzzle indirectly represent sort of the work you have put in,
The majority consensus,
the
because
majority consensus.
if people don't agree with you, they will not be working on the puzzle with you together. So it's a group effort, it's the result of the puzzle solution. And if you can showcase that I have the example solution here, therefore you have represented basically on behalf of everyone else who is solving the puzzle with you, that they agree with you.
Yeah.
This is a very quick and easy way for you to represent that you do indeed have like the group majority consensus, which means that over 51% of the people agree that you send, like, let's say $10 from A to B.
And think about class board elections, right? Like, class board election uses signatures to, well, at least for the first round, to judge like how many people support you. But signatures is easy to fake, right? Like, I could fake signatures. But we need some, essentially we're trying to create an arbitrary task so that only real people, only people who agree with you, who want to support you, can complete that task faster. So that's the whole idea about this cryptographic puzzle.
So what is the puzzle?
Yes. So we're gonna talk about in the next slides. So this is everything that we talked about. It's a cryptographic puzzle. You go with the version of truth that has more puzzles solved, and then if you want to defeat the system, you will have to control 50%, more than 50% of the actual population that's in the system.
Yeah.
What's stopping from someone with a lot of computational power from?
Yes.
Exactly. You can't.
You can't. But how do you get more computational power? Money and electricity, right? But let's say if you really want to win the system, you're going to buy a lot of equipment. You're going to be using a lot of electricity, a lot of graphics cards. Very sad for the gamers out there who can't get their latest 3080 Ti. They're going to fight for that solution, right? But then not only you, because there are other people who have actual money on the system. They want to make sure that their money live there securely. So they're going to try as hard as they can to secure their money and fight you. It's like an endless battle, but since the assumption is that there's more good people in the network than bad people, and therefore the amount of work outputted by the good people will always be greater than the bad people, and therefore the network is secure.
It's low-key like hoping for the best.
We're hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's just like hoping the government isn't trying to like
Scam you. Yeah.
Imagine if the government started scamming you, what would you do, right?
Injection?
The reality is you're getting scammed right now, and there's nothing you can do about it. But on the blockchain, there's something you can do about it. Yes.
I sort of heard that there are 4 Bitcoin farms within China that
Yes.
compose more than 50% of the newly hashed Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So aren't we just trusting the Chinese government to go there and be you guys please?
Yes, that is essentially what you're doing, right? Like we're hoping for the best that they don't unite together and try to alter the truth.
And that is very true, but ironically, the Chinese government banned Bitcoin mining, so it's no longer a problem.
But now they're all in the US
Yeah.
now. So you got picked up by the American government. The US controls 49% of all mining power.
That's what they post on the public data. Of course, they're not going to say we have 51%, but yeah, as you can see, Bitcoin is just really a group belief that this is secure and my money worth my money, right? This is why a lot of people make criticism about the security of Bitcoin, and also just its throughput as to how much transaction it can handle, which we'll probably talk about a much better model called Ethereum later on in the next workshop.
So to wrap this up, so how do we go from account book, a transaction, new account book, transaction, account book to Bitcoin? So first of all, we are no longer making this transition every transaction. We're instead bundling these transactions up, and then we make a state transition. So for Bitcoin,
What's a straight transition?
Sorry.
You said straight state transition.
So essentially from one account balance, it's like you have $10, I have $5. And instead of just after every transaction, I'm updating the number, I'm just gonna batch a bunch of transactions together and add multiple things, minus multiple things. And then you have a new state. So this is, and actually, this is not the block. This is the block. Because you're able to sort of infer sort of what's coming next by aggregating these transactions together. So Bitcoin actually doesn't store these blocks, they store the transactions instead.
Yeah, instead of storing actually how much money you have in plain like data, it stores like the actual transaction log. So every account, I mean, other than like the Genesis accounts, they start with a balance of 0, right? There's going to be debits and credits where you gain and lose money. If you can look through the entire log from the very beginning, you can just do the very simple math of like plus and minuses and get how much money you have right now.
And the second thing is we previously mentioned this concept of like chaining hashes, and Bitcoin indeed also chains hashes from a previous block so that you're unable to modify the previous blocks without people noticing. So that is sort of one of the security guarantees. And as the question you ask is like, which cryptographic puzzle are they exactly solving? So now this is gonna get like deep real quick. So essentially in this block, in addition to other transactions, and then some metadata information, like let's say which block is this, like this is the block height, essentially like this is the number of block that we have. There's also this number called nonce. And the meaning of nonce is just like a meaningless number.
The number only sold once. Oh, yeah. I think like a very straightforward way for you to look at it is you guys all flipped a coin before, right? So what the puzzle is like, what it's really doing is film yourself flipping the coin 10 times and each time it has to land on its head.
Right.
Obviously, each time it's like a probability of like half and half between landing on your head and tail. So there's always going to be a probability by probabilistic method that this could happen, but it's going to take some time for you to get there.
Right. And so sorry, I really want to talk about this. So essentially, like we had this idea of like you can take the content of a block and then you can create a hash. Let's say this hash 1. And then let's modify something inside of it. Let's say I put a number 1 in this nonce field. Then it becomes hash 2. It's like some other hash, right? And then by changing this nonce, I can keep creating hash H3, H4, and whatever, right? So the puzzle we're trying to solve is that we want to find the hash n such that the hash, the first x number of the bits, essentially like numbers, characters, is equal to 0. So we want to find a hash such that we have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then whatever. Yes.
By 0.
Because it's just an arbitrary number.
It's an arbitrary way for us to easily adjust how difficult or easy it will be for us to do the coin flip and find that random number. Because like if you think about it, what hashing really is, the result of hash is just it's a random number, it's a pseudo random number generator. That's what I was referring to the coin flip. The probability of you getting a value that's smaller than a certain threshold for this value right here will be much harder if we have, let's say, like more zeros on the front, because that's a smaller range that you can land your randomness in.
And another example maybe is like you're dropping a ball, throwing a ball on this like plane, right? You have a uniform distribution across this I guess 2D real plane, and it could land anywhere. And we're saying that we're only gonna accept the result if you land in this corner. And by adjusting the size of this corner, we're able to adjust like how difficult it is, how long you're gonna like try and try again, eventually land here. So this is a cryptographic puzzle.
That's a very like the bigger the square, it's easier to get it in that. If it's like half the size of the field, then it's easier to land it.
And essentially, every time you add a 0 in front, you divide the area by 10-fold. So it's only like 1/10, and you add another 0, it's like 1/10, and add another 10. So it's like really hard. So yes,
It's just as long as one of the users land on it.
Yep.
Whoever lands on the fastest, because then they will be able to publish the results before everyone else.
And then like the last clause is like at the beginning of this, no one has any money, and all the monies are distributed by people sort of playing this puzzle games. So it's what you're suggesting, right? It's like the first person who lands on this, essentially they're randomly chosen, because there's sort of, you can't just like brute force this. You just need to like try enough time, and you get randomly find this dot. And then you get a reward, you get some Bitcoin. That is sort of the mining rewards that we talk about, and that's why miners are incentivized to keep this network operating.
So mining is literally the process of just like guessing what this, what the solution for this puzzle is.
And the solution is meaningless, like absolutely meaningless.
Yeah.
So this is a waste of electricity. But why do we need this? We need this because we want to make sure that every state transition is correct. So that no one is just gonna say, oh, here's my $10 billion just transferred to my account.
Do you have any questions about anything else? Because like, if not, I think, unless you guys want to stay here and still talk to us, but we do only have this room booked, like. about-
Yeah, so I think we'll just stop here for tonight. Like we went through Bitcoin. I hope you guys have a good understanding of Bitcoin, and we'll talk about Ethereum and other things next.
Yeah, that's the true exciting part. Bitcoin is just something, because it is the first blockchain that was officially accepted by society. Something we want to like really mention. But
Well, let's do Sunday night.
You guys never mentioned how people get.
You mind the very last part.
that is what mining is.
So we're gonna hang around. I'm
If you
gonna
guys have any
hang
questions,
around till
be like,
another 15 minutes. If you guys have questions, we'd love to clear up any
so